Welcome to the Literature Podcast. My name is Njabulo Madondo, and of course I'm not alone. I'm with my partner
Lungani.
We're going to be discussing the book called Maru by, of course, Bessie Head. It's a book that touches on themes such as race, power, identity, marginality, and gender. You know what I mean? And it also looks into the allegory that's happening in the love triangle of Maru, Margaret, and Muleka. And it also looks into the relation that it has to the colonialism and post-colonial betrayal. You know what I mean? So let's look at, the beginning of the whole thing, which is the background of the book. Because we can't talk about a book that we don't know. So let's talk about the background of the book. Mr. Nzimande.
Okay, greetings everyone. The novel Maru is a novel by Bessie Head, published in 1971. The story of the novels revolves around the woman, a Masawa woman called Margaret Cadmo, the Junior.
Yeah.
Margaret was adopted and raised by a white woman called Margaret Cadmo, the Senior. Margaret becomes a teacher in a Dilepe village in Botswana, where the Masawa people were facing heavily discrimination, and also they were treated as outcasts by the Botswana people. Moving forward to the setting of the book Maru is set in Botswana, or the book is set in Dilepe in Botswana.
Yes.
The novel revolves in the time of 1960s,
yes,
where the Masawa people were treated or were considered as outcast by the Botswana people.
Yes.
Moving forward to you, Njabulo, in your own opinion, what drove Bessie Head to write this novel, Maru?
Look, Bessie Head is a South African colored, woman who, of course, wrote this book in times where it was during apartheid. And of course, if you can look at the social hierarchy in South Africa at the time, white people were, dominant.
Yeah,
and of course, people who were facing marginalization were colored people who were mixed, which is in relation to Margaret, who is also mixed,
Yes.
and looking into other races such as, the colored and the black, which were also marginalized. So I think...
And also the Indians.
And also the Indians as well. I think the reason why Bessie Head wrote this book was to represent every marginalized group, and how one person can be a liberator by just maybe making one move that can change the whole concept of the whole thing. And did you know, looking into the setting as well, did you know that Dilepe, the Dilepe and also the whole country of Botswana was a British protectorate, or rather colony, for 8 years?
No, I didn't know.
It was under the British protectorate, yes. Okay. So the British were protecting Botswana, of course, for their own various reasons and benefits. But now it also taps into what we're going to talk about when we're talking about colonialism, how the colonizer treats you, and in a way that becomes trauma to you, and you end up imposing it or transmitting it to other people. You know what I mean? So just like Maru imposing it or transmitting it to Margaret, to Margaret or the Masawa people as a whole, Now, Lungani, I want us to look into allegory, right? The allegory behind the love triangle, and also, the allegory in post-colonial, times. Because in post-colonial times, we as Africans should be holding each other tight, because we've been facing colonialism. So the allegory, the hidden message, whether is it in a moral, in a typical moral way or political way. But let's look into that. I want us to look into that, and please elaborate when it comes to this love triangle, so that we can know more.
Okay, thank you, Njabulo. The love triangle between Maru, Margaret, the youngest, and also Muleka in Bessie Head. Maru, the novel, is a powerful allegory.
Yes.
To present the post-colonial betrayals, especially to explore the intersection of race, power, and also gender. Moving forward to the theme of race and marginality.
Yes.
This allegory is evident or evolves around Margaret, a Masawa woman who is viewed as belonging to the Botswana lower or service or seventh caste. This intellectual commitment of people around her are put by her identification. Muleka, who's a womanizer, was initially drawn to Margaret's beauty and identity.
Yes.
Okay.
And also artistic manners.
Muleka eventually represent the post-colonial subject. Okay. And also Muleka is unable to overcome a deep held biases based on the Masawa people.
Yes.
Okay. In contrast, Maru ceased to acknowledge Margaret's intelligence
Yes.
and humanity. His attempt to liberate her are rife with manipulation and also control. As I said, that Maru is, we can consider Maru as a paternalistic character. Okay, racism is evident from the moment Margaret arrives in Dilebo. The quote from the book. She was a Masawa woman, and no Masawa had been a teacher in Dilebo before. And also the community was against of her, and the community also says that their children cannot be taught by a Masawa woman. Okay, moving forward, Njabulo, just step 2 and also elaborate more on post-colonial betrayal.
Look, the whole book it's based on that, because being colonized as African people after colonialism, I think it was a period where we should be holding each other tight and supporting each other, right? So it resembles post-colonial betrayal, because in the book, if you can look at the Tswana and the Masara relationship dynamics, the Batswana, when you look into the social hierarchy, are at the higher position, and they're using hegemony, power dynamics to rule this village of Dilepe by making sure that they are at the top, they dominate, you know what I mean? And looking into also the betrayal in it, right? These are African people.
Okay.
These are African people. The Masara people are African people. The Bushmen are African people. The Batswana people are also African people. So you might think that after colonialism, it's a moment where as Africans we come together, but then we see people like Maru, people like Peter, people like Seth, people like Ranko, saying no to a woman who is mixed, a woman who's Masara, who identifies as Masara, and they're not allowing her to be a teacher in this village of theirs, right? Yes. And looking into internal, under race as well, right? We're still talking about race. Under race as well, looking into internal oppression, right? Now, the Batswana people who internalized oppression and also, accepting their status in the social status, them being at the top, they tend to impose, oppression. Just like this relationship with them and the Masara, it mirrors or is a reflection of the colonizer and the colonized, which in this part, the Masara are the colonized and the Batswana, of course, are the colonizer. So that's the whole concept of the, post-colonial betrayal, where our own people are turning against each other, and they don't see the value on another when they look at another African brother or African sister, regardless of sharing the same skin tone, skin color, same everything. But that's the betrayal when you look into the post-colonial betrayal. Lungani, let's look into the theme of gender and power. Elaborate on that.
Okay, in the theme of gender and power, Margaret appears to be the focus of both men's affection. However, she also serves as a symbolic iron for the unfolding of power dynamics. Although Maru marries Margaret, Maru manipulates Margaret
yes,
and acts as if he loves her. The quote from the book: he had planned everything, he had mapped her future step by step. And as I said before, that Maru is paternalistic. Maru is not a liberator. He is also a colonizer who manipulates Margaret to serve his own purposes.
Paternalistic is the word, yes.
Okay. Njabulo, I think you can add on gender and power.
Look, when it comes to gender and power, I think they are interconnected or interlinked, because now power in this context, we're talking about patriarchal norms. We're talking about Maru being paternalistic towards Margaret, telling Margaret what to do in a way, you know what I mean? And also looking into gender, how that patriarchal, society not only affects the Masara people, but it also touches people like Dikeledi. I want us to look into the relationship of Dikeledi and Margaret, them sharing experiences, right? And I want to quote Dikeledi when she is having a conversation with Maru, who she senses that, okay, Maru is using, hegemony and of course paternalistic manner towards Margaret, and she states that to Maru, she might not like to marry you, or she might not want to marry you. Margaret might not want to marry you, because people are free nowadays. People are free to do whatever they want to do, So the shared experiences leads to Dikeledi to sympathize, with Margaret. At the same time, Margaret as well sympathizes with Dikeledi, and through them, we're seeing, female friendship, we're seeing female empowerment, and we're also seeing how these two people are helping each other because they share the same gender, and how power, which is patriarchal norms in this context, is affecting their lives and relationships. I also want us to look into, empowerment, female empowerment, how Margaret alone is standing and representing the whole Masara people, going to work every day, regardless of Peter, said, and the other teachers, looking at her and
also the community.
And the community as well, looking at her as someone who's not fit to be, someone who's not fit to be their teacher, because she identifies as a Masara, who in this context are inferior, to the Botswanas, and the Botswanas, of course, in the social hierarchy are at the top. Maru is labeled as a liberatory because, as much as he showed hate and wanted to oppress the Masara people, even Margaret as well, him not wanting Margaret as a teacher, in the book, it says a lot about him. But at the end, the action that he does is indeed liberatory, because he chooses to marry Margaret, and in the end, we see where we can actually quote that, the Masara people saw a window of freedom, and they saw that if one of them is getting married to someone who is higher in position and in power, of course it means they are also liberated, and of course now freedom is within them, and they can also live as equal as the Botswana. I think that's it, Lungani, and thank you guys for watching our podcast. Adios.